Welcome in, 3 AM Coney. We have a special guest to comment on our guest from the show from the other day, Joe Boyle. And we said on the Joe Boyle show that we were going to have Brian McLaughlin on later in the show. That was a lie. This is a separate show because, Brian's inconsistent. He never shows up. I'm completely kidding. We just decided to do two separate episodes. Brian McLaughlin's joining us. He was a broadcaster with me in Kalamazoo with the Reds' fifth-round pick, Joe Boyle. And the Reds' fifth-round pick we discussed on the last show. I think this is a guy that really had fourth or third-round value. Brian also covered him in the Cape Cod League when he broadcasted there. And, Brian, I want to give you congratulations. I am now inviting you on my show as the voice of a Division I men's basketball team. That's a big deal, buddy. Congratulations on your job heading to the University of Vermont. The Catamounts, absolutely killing it. Say hi to Bernie Sanders when you make your trip up there to the Northeast.
Yeah.
Congratulations, buddy. How's it feel?
Thanks so much, Lucas. It feels really good. I'm super, super excited. I can't wait to get to Burlington. I'm already diving headfirst into just Vermont basketball research, as I'm sure you understand. But yeah, I'm so excited. I really appreciate the kind words. And I'm excited. It's a great program up there. 9 straight 20-win seasons for Vermont basketball. So really excited. But yeah, I'm excited to be on the show here with you today. Talk some baseball, and whether that's Joe Boyle or whatever else, you and I can go all day with this type of stuff.
Oh, without a doubt. Now, here's the crazy thing, is I think that on some days, Brian wants to be where I'm at, which right now is a block from Wrigley Field. And on some days, I want to be where he's at, calling men's college basketball, which is what you're about to be doing. And it's because you're a Cubs fan, man. I mean, living a block from Wrigley, every time I walk by there, I go, man, Brian would love to live right in this spot, right here. Like, I think this would be perfect for you. You need to come visit sometime, buddy. It's great around here, and your Cubs, first place in the division, actually kind of impressive. Hopefully the Reds can steal 2 wins on a doubleheader today.
I'm very excited. We've got Darvish Bauer coming up in Game 1. That's going to be a heck of a matchup. But yeah, I am quite jealous of you being right there at Wrigley. Obviously, quite the cathedral, really. So maybe one day I'll be living right there. Hopefully get to work a little bit up in that press box too while I'm at it. But yeah, I'm quite jealous of you and living. It's a pretty great spot to live, I'm sure, and I can't wait to come visit.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. That's the bottom line of it. COVID-19 or not, it's fun to live in the city of Chicago. It's a great city, and I understand why so many people love it and so many people never leave here. I understand that thoroughly. Let's go ahead and dive into Joe Burrow, what the listeners on the 3 AM Coney, not Joe Burrow, Joe Boyle. Sorry, a lot of great Joey
You just have Burrow. You have Burrow on the brain, man. That's all I see from you.
Listen, you don't want to get me started on the 3 AM Coney with Joe Burrow.
I'm not.
These people have seen it. Kids just,
I know.
Kids just legit. You talk about a fastball, forget Joe Boyle. It's Joe Burrow. Okay. Brian is a graduate of Penn State, which is completely irrelevant to the question I'm about to ask him. But Brian, being a graduate from Penn State, loves college football, loves college sports, covered a few games in State College during whiteouts. So this guy's really tied into college football, so he knows everything there is to know about Joe Burrow. We don't need to dive into that. But Joe Boyle, the real Joey B that we wanted to talk about, the Reds' fifth-round pick, which, by the way, I've looked at all the Reds' draft picks. I like Hendrick, the first-round pick. I like these guys, but honestly, if I were in the Reds' draft room, I'd be most excited in terms of who is most likely to contribute to a successful Major League team. I think Joe Boyle's at the top of that list for the Reds' draft picks this year because 102 miles per hour, 6'7", hides the ball, long extension. This guy just feels like he has one thing to figure out, and that's throwing strikes. As soon as he does, he's going to be able to contribute in Major League Baseball.
Oh, no question about it. I think to start with Joe, he's got a pretty high floor, right?
Yeah.
At worst, you're getting 102 mile an hour fastball, touches 103. He's going to be sitting right around triple digits. He really, I think he kind of eased back on trying to throw as hard as he possibly could, and that's helping the strikes. But man, what a high floor he has. And he's going to go right through that minor league system, right? Just because he throws so hard, he's going to be able to help the big league clubs sooner rather than later. So I can totally understand being really excited. And you always wonder how much value are you really going to get with drafting a bullpen guy. But if you can help your club within less than 2 or 3 years potentially of being drafted, it doesn't matter what position you are. That's a pretty good value in whatever draft pick you're getting.
See, there's some things that Major League Baseball scouting departments and general managers do that I just do not understand, and that's one of them. You know what you should be thinking every time you have a draft? You should be thinking about acquiring WAR, wins above replacement. Now, I know that stat can be misaligned or whatever, but to me, it's a very simple stat to sit down and go, okay, this approximates the value of a player above an average player, and as an organization, we should be trying to have a roster filled with guys who are adding wins to the team because that's how you get to a lot of wins. So you should really treat every decision you make of, okay, what potential amount of wins could this add to my ball club? If you're drafting a starting pitcher out of high school who's got a high ceiling, but God, his floor is AA, that feels like less value to me out of that draft pick than a guy who literally just needs to throw more strikes, which is not an easy thing to do, but it is one thing, and he can be a contributing factor, a guy that adds 1 to 2 wins out of the bullpen for your major league team. That feels like more of a value pick than a starting pitcher who may or may not ever play in the major leagues.
Yeah, it's an awful balance because if you want to talk about WAR, your relief pitchers are generally the least valuable people on the roster. But it doesn't really matter if they're not going to get to the big leagues. So it's, in that sense, really the safe pick is a guy like Boyle who can get to the big leagues. I know there's a chance he starts, but I think you and I both see him as that reliever type role. And I'm really excited to see what the Reds do with him developmentally because they just add Kyle Boddy from Driveline as director of pitching with that entire developmental system. And what if he adds another tick or two of velocity with Joe and helps him really refine those mechanics? Because when you watch Joe pitch, it's a lot of moving parts. And that extension over the top, hides the ball, helps him add that velocity. What if all of a sudden he becomes even more efficient and controlled? And normally that is when the control comes. Now, of course, we're just talking fastball before we even have gotten into his off-speed additions, where right now it's really just a pretty sharp slider, but he's throwing a slider 89, 90 miles an hour. If he can just have consistency with that pitch, you're talking a major league closer, much less a middle relief guy, which is all of a sudden that's when your value really goes through the roof with these relievers if you can get a lights out closer out of them.
Yeah, I think it's on the table. I really believe in the kid, and he says that he's not going to go try to be a starter. He's going to do whatever the Reds think is best for him, which is the absolute correct attitude to have as a pitcher. And he thinks that he's capable of being a starting pitcher, so we'll see. I think there's some value in trying it. You learn some skills. Maybe he'll learn to pull back off this pitch or simplify this mechanic because he's trying to extend out over games instead of trying to blow by 3 batters one time every 2 days. And maybe that makes him a more refined relief pitcher when he gets to the major leagues. But that fastball is so explosive. It reminds me of a righty Aroldis Chapman, truly. It's explosive fastball. Don't let it get up on you because you'll think it's up in the strike zone, but he's really throwing it a foot above the strike zone. You'll still swing at it. That happens with Aroldis all the time. That happened with Joe Boyle all the time when I've seen him pitch. And this diving, biting, 90-mile-per-hour slider that looks like it's thrown by a superhero. I think that works in the bullpen in Major League Baseball for sure.
I'll tell you what, I think he needs to develop some confidence in that slider because from what I've seen, that has a chance to be just as filthy and maybe even a better out pitch than the fastball. Because at this point, The fastball, while it's explosive, it doesn't, you know how Blake Trinan has so much dip, dive to it? Joe's fastball at this point is explosive, but it's a pretty straight four seam. The slider has the movement. If he can tunnel those two pitches, nobody will ever touch that slider. Every once in a while, someone's going to square up his fastball. Major league hitters are going to square up 100 miles an hour if it's a four seamer. But if he can have confidence with the slider to throw it in any count to any batter, that's really going to be the X factor for me. If it's just an okay slider and he's still throwing 102 with the fastball, he's still going to be a solid pitcher. But the slider has a chance to make him elite out of the bullpen. If we're talking him as a starter, maybe that fastball velocity dips to 97, 98, which is still it's going to be a 99th percentile fastball. The question is, if the velocity dips, does his control improve? Now, that would be a question that I'm sure the Reds are asking. If they try to make him a starter, would the control actually improve? I'm sure they have to be thinking that a little bit, and that's why it's so great to hear that he's open to it, because now you have a chance to try some stuff and see what he's got as a starter, and who knows, the sky's the limit if he can figure that out and maybe add a changeup or a curveball of some sort. The stuff is there. It's just a matter of what additions or tweaks can they make to add on to the value he's already providing.
Well, another guy that I wanted to talk to you about is another guy you and I covered, Ivan Johnson, drafted in the fourth round by the Reds in 2019. So he's been in minor league baseball. I don't know if you've read his numbers recently, but I'll give you his year one numbers in Greenville. Batted .255, 6 home runs, 22 RBIs, 18 walks, 46 Ks, stole 11 bags, got caught 4 times, 327 OBP, 742 OPS. That is a solid rookie ball year. Solid. From Ivan Johnson. And this is a guy you and I know has 5 tools and is a guy that's dedicated to baseball and can play a multitude of positions in Major League Baseball. Right now a second baseman, but we've seen him play right, left, shortstop, whole shebang. This is a guy that can really be a contributor at the next level for Cincinnati.
Yes, I agree. It was a fun game when we were in Kalamazoo. You and I would talk between ourselves with the assistant coaches. Who's the best bet to get to the show? Or who do we think has a chance to get there? And you and I would often talk about Ivan because he's such a good, polished athlete. And the baseball sometimes needs a little bit of reforming or just kind of polishing. But the athletic ability was always what stood out. He played center field for the Growlers as well as shortstop. You mentioned second base. One of the things that I will always remember about Ivan is how well he charges baseballs on the infield. He came in on ground balls better than any infielder I saw that summer. And really, I worked in college baseball last summer as well in the Cape League. Nobody charged the ball in the Cape League as well as I saw Ivan Johnson do in Kalamazoo either. And so that is, I'm curious to see where the Reds try to use him defensively. If they at all experiment with the idea of him just hitting from one side of the plate, it's hard to switch hit at the major league level. So there are questions I still have about Ivan, but it's going to be fun to watch his development. Did you see the numbers he put up at JUCO the year after he left Georgia?
I'm sure they were ridiculous. I didn't actually see
Oh my
him.
God. He led his team in home runs. He had double-digit stolen bases, was an absolute dude. It was so fun. And I was just following stats. There were no streams or anything available. I was not shocked at all that the Reds then took him pretty high in the draft. He just absolutely dominated that level. And so there's another guy, athletic ability creates that upside. And so I'm excited to watch that path. And I'm curious to watch that defensive positioning, where they think he fits best. Or you can just keep him as a utility. That's valuable too.
Yeah, well, last year you were talking about the splits. Actually batted 5 points better from the right side of the plate in 50 at-bats than the left, but way more power from the left side, at least statistically last year. And I remember we three, you, me, and him, used to have an argument about what side of the plate he had more power on. I forget exactly what his position on that argument was, but statistically so far, power from the left side for Ivan Johnson. I just think he's a player to watch. Now, there's plenty of other players to watch in the Reds minor league organization. I would not go out there on a limb, 3 AM Coney fans, and say this is the guy to watch. I think Joe Boyle maybe has a better chance of the show than Ivan Johnson for the simple fact that he throws 102. But Ivan's got an arm, range, fielding ability, speed, 11 stolen bases in not even 70 games in minor league baseball. He's a guy that's going to steal bases and make impact plays in the field, and that's a wrinkle that he brings to the table, unlike really any college player I've seen, just because of how natural of an athlete he is.
Yeah, and I think the power is coming. I think he's such a good athlete, so strong that
6 home runs,
developing power.
Six home runs in what? How many games here? 46 games, 6 bombs. That's pretty good.
And I'll tell you what, this year in baseball, I've gotten really into Baseball Savant and StatCast and the idea of hard-hit baseballs. And Ivan's a guy that always squared the ball up. It wasn't little dink and doink base hits or soft ground balls that he's using his speed to beat out. He hit line drives all over the field from both sides of the plate. And I think I do remember the left side being a little more powerful when we saw him, Lucas. But if he continues to be able to square up minor league pitching, good things are going to happen for this guy. It's that simple.
Oh, without a doubt. And, I always knew the home runs he hit were line drive shots. They weren't these high arcing balls. I mean, they got off the bat quick. And, that was a great team you and I had the opportunity to cover. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out over the next 10 years with all these guys. Because I believe we're going to have 9, I think it's 9, the last I counted, professional baseball players that were on that bus with us in the summer of 2018. 9 of them, which is absolutely insane.
Group. Yeah, especially I love the Northwoods League and what they do for developing players, but historically not as much success as, say, the Cape Cod League as far as getting guys to the pros or even getting guys drafted. But, man, that group could go down as a historic Northwoods team as far as group of talent together at one time.
Yeah, I really do believe that, because we're not even talking about Zach Daniels, because this is a Cincinnati sports podcast, and Zach Daniels has the most natural power I've seen of any human in person ever. Yeah, other than Bryce, Bryce Harper is the only other guy I've seen hit BP in person that looked more impressive than Zach Daniels.
And I'll tell you what, we know Nico Cavadas on that team as well. He was he focused on line drives. He hit for his fair share of power, obviously. He won the Cape Cod League Home Run Derby last year, beating out former Kalamazoo Growler teammate Baron Radcliffe. And those two both really figured out the power last year. Both had maybe the 2 best power tools in the entire Cape League. And Nico just launched home run after home run after home run in batting practice. And so those two matched the power that we saw from Zach Daniels and BP. So and Ivan is a guy who was the line drive approach, but hit the ball just as hard as those guys. What a lineup that was.
Yeah, I mean, the problem was in that league they were young.
Yep.
That's the thing, is the whole team was young.
Yeah.
More raw talent than anybody.
Yeah.
But it was just not as refined. And then late in the season, as often happens in the summer collegiate leagues, especially the Northwoods, you kind of had to dive back into different rosters. And, on that team, you had Donovan Clark on that team who played football at Indiana. He's coaching right now. But amazing athlete, just a great bunch, a great team, a lot of fun. And, Brian, I really appreciated you popping on the 3 AM Coney and, going through the memories of the Northwoods League. Real quick before I get you out of here, though, talk about this National League Central for me. What's your opinion on the division thus far, and how do you see it playing out the rest of the 60-game season?
Well, based on records, it's the worst division in baseball, right? I mean, it has not been all that pretty from a division that was supposed to have 4 contenders. I mean, you mentioned it earlier. I'm a Cubs fan, and so they are the division leader by a handful of games right now. But they have not been exactly playing any good baseball. The Reds are scary, and I know Cincinnati show here. The Reds scare me as a Cubs fan. Nick Castellanos, Mike Moustakas, what incredible additions. Eugenio Suarez is a just absolutely great power guy, and Luis Castillo is going to get it going to go along with Sonny Gray and Trevor Bauer. And that top three in the rotation, I think it's going to be between the Cubs and the Reds. The Brewers never really scared me this year. I just didn't think the roster was of the same level of the Cubs or the Reds. And then who knows with the Cardinals, man? I never know what to make of the Cardinals. I don't think the roster's all that there either, but they just keep winning baseball games. So I could see them making a push, but I think this is between the Cubs and the Reds. And it's going to be about who takes advantage of playing the Pirates and playing the Royals and playing the Tigers. Who can win those games and sweep those teams, I think has the best chance of winning this division.
Yeah, I'm 100% in agreement, and that's why I was screaming about how important the 2-5 start for the Reds was, because I think by the end of the season, all we're going to say the difference between the Chicago Cubs and Cincinnati Reds was the start. That's it.
Yep.
Cubs 13-3.
Started hot.
Reds floundering. And that start matters, Brian, because you had a manager that was managing like it was the playoffs. You came out wanting a 13-3 start. You came out looking for it, hungry for it. I mean, I watched David Ross manage the first couple of games. The guy acted like it was the playoffs with the bullpen decisions. And it's a bad bullpen. And somehow they managed with the same level of dog crap in the back end. The Cubs went 13-3 while the Reds started whatever horrible record they started with in the first 16 games. I think they were near 500, but probably 2 or 3 games below it. And it's explicitly because of the attitudes the managers had towards the start of the season. And that's what's going to cost the Reds in 60 games. You and I, Brian, have broadcasted quite a few baseball seasons that are 60 to 72 games or 44 to 72 games. And we both know that a 13-3 start is guaranteed going to make the postseason every single time, especially in this format that we have this year. And the Reds are going to fight for their lives to hang around in this division all year. Just needed to go on a David Bell rant. End of the show. But
I don't blame you.
I mean, the 44 to 72 game season, you've seen a lot of them, Brian. I mean, this is not going to change all that much the way we see the standings right now. I think a lot of people are kind of banking on things to really shift, but it's so hard. That 60 games is usually a decent microcosm.
Halfway over. It's halfway over. Like, Cub fans are worried about how the Cubs have been playing, and they just need to play 500 ball, and they have a real chance to win the division and make the playoffs because of that start. And so,
well, they're going to make the playoffs, Brian. They almost have. You need what, 29, 31 wins to make the playoffs? They've already got 18 of them.
I think if you get 31 wins, and so the Reds need to just get their way into the playoffs and find a way to be playing their best baseball at the end of September. If so, that team, I stand by. The Reds are talented enough to win the National League. I've said that since the beginning of this season. I love the roster there. I worry a little bit about the manager. I know you do as well. We'll see. I'm curious to see what the Reds do trade deadline here. Do they make any additions? What do they do? I'm assuming they're going to keep Trevor Bauer. It is definitely a team to watch.
For sure. But, think about it. Cubs 18-13, 13-18 is all they need to go. Or whatever.
Yep.
Or 12-18, and you're making the playoffs. I mean, come on.
Yep.
That's you're going to go 12-18. You're the Cubs. You get to play the Pirates and the Tigers and the Royals a bunch. Now, but the Reds are 14-17, and they've got to play good baseball, great baseball almost, to be in a good position heading into this extended postseason. All right, I teased ending it. Now we're actually going to end it, Brian. Thank you for coming on to the 3 AM Coney. Everybody, it's so cool that I've started. My good friend Russ Heltman I broadcasted with. Got to introduce him as Sports Illustrated writer, Russ Heltman, writing for all Bengals. And now I get to introduce my good friend Brian as a voice of a Division I men's basketball team. Hopefully there's March Madness, and hopefully your Catamounts are involved, Brian.
Well, thanks, Lucas. It's been so fun to catch up and talk some baseball. I appreciate it, and thanks for having me on, man.
All right, that was Brian McLaughlin. This was the 3 AM Coney.